Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trinisphere. This is episode 5, and I am Squire 1, the Johnny, joined by
Nikki Bolus, the Timmy,
and
Ryan, the Spike. I just want to point out something.
what?
What's up?
5 is the number of rings that Tom Brady has.
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't even know what that means.
It means that
It's true.
It means
It's
he got
not-
he got
it's not-
stopped there. He doesn't have
it's
6
not
now.
six.
So I just want
It's
to point
not
that out.
6.
You know, the Super Bowl just happened, so
I don't know.
The
anything
superb owl.
All right. So,
I've never heard that.
episode 5, we are going to be talking about evaluating cards, risk versus reward. But before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsor, tappedout.net, for hosting us, and you guys should all check it out. You should also subscribe and do the Facebook and Twitter thing.
Ring that bell.
All the things.
Ring it. Just
All the things. Yeah,
Village
exactly.
bell ringer.
So you could be first in the comments.
That's what
Yeah.
you want to be.
Yeah.
So, without any further ado, let's jump into it. So, evaluating cards, risk versus reward. I think that, generally speaking, a lot of people, especially newer players, have a lot of trouble evaluating new cards as they come
Oh,
out.
100%.
Yeah.
We've all been
Not
there.
even new players, even old players.
Well, I was gonna say,
Sometimes
I
they
mean,
get-
like, I
they
get
the blinders.
The blinders,
sometimes.
man.
I get the rose-colored glasses when I'm like, there's the most niche combo possible
Yeah,
available with
yeah,
this.
you're like-
It has to be $1 million.
It takes 9 pieces and 14 turns. But
Right,
it'll
exactly.
Be glorious.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about this from a couple different perspectives. First, we're just going to talk about it overall, and we're probably going to agree on most of the risk versus reward type sentiments. But then we're going to talk a little bit about how each of the profiles views weighing risk versus reward in including cards in their deck. So, first up was a pretty simple card, or a pretty simple concept. When is a card too Timmy for a spike?
Two Timmy for a Spike.
So when is it too much good times and giant splashy thing to play?
That's a good scale.
Right.
That's a really good
Yeah,
scale.
you could have like a spectrum of splashy to like.
I feel like all Johnny cards kind of fall in between the scale, but it's
Yeah.
definitely spiked to 10.
I mean, we're really transcendent.
That's
we're
true.
outside of the
Yeah,
scale.
they're like on a different spectrum.
Yeah.
Just
we're,
like,
we're,
this
here,
card
we're
just
the
don't
line,
do
you're the
anything.
bubble.
That's right.
This card don't do anything until one time where it does everything.
So what is the call here? So let's take something. I'm gonna take a very splashy card that is played in a super spiky deck in Modern.
Let's hear it.
Worldspine Worm.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. Worldspine Worm is a 15/15, right?
For
Yeah.
Wait, for 15?
for
something
like
like
No,
a
it's,
million.
no, it's 15,
Yeah,
15
yeah,
for
for a
15.
million. Yeah.
Stupid giant creature.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, one would generally consider this a Timmy card.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, this is played in Grishelbrand,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it has some applications. Obviously, Modern as opposed to EDH.
Yes.
So, where does that fall on this spectrum? Do you feel like that's super Timmy? Do you feel like that's super Spike? Do you feel like
It was just honestly, the Grishol brand is a
Yeah.
combo deck. It is
100% a combo
It's just a combo
deck, yeah.
deck that happens to take advantage of a Timmy card. Like so, it's
Right.
100% a Timmy card that happens to be used in.
I get to discard this card. I don't actually want to play
It
it.
literally says exile this card, gain 15.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, Mono Red Burn.
Right. Yeah. So, what kind of other cards can we take a look at? So, one of the examples that I think Shannon brought up was, let's take a look at Suncrested Mare, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suncrested Mare versus
Grave type.
Grave Titan. Okay.
Mm.
So Grave Titan, 6/6 body for 6, makes two
Two twos.
2/2s
On ETB,
on ETB.
Yep.
It has Death Touch. Okay.
and when it attacks, it also makes 2 more 2/2s.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yep.
Okay, Suncrest Mare,
5/5.
5/5 for 5, right?
Yep.
Okay. Makes horses have indestructible or some random.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then makes horses.
Other horses, by the
Makes
way.
when you
5/5.
gain life.
Yeah, whenever you gain life, it makes
Right.
a 5/5 horse.
At the end, at beginning,
At the
of
end
your-
step,
at the
yeah.
beginning of each end step, if you gain life
If you
this
gain
turn,
life, that's
make
it,
a
yeah,
5/5.
okay.
Yeah.
It gives other horses indestructible.
All right. So both make extra power by being
Both
on the
make 10
battlefield.
power.
Both of them make 10 power. Yeah. Thinking that you gained life that turn,
Yeah.
assuming you gain life.
And that creature's alive before it hits your end step.
Well, same thing.
I think it triggers.
No, it's at the no. What are you talking about? That's not when you
Oh,
gain
you're
life.
right, you're
At
right.
the
Yeah,
beginning
yeah,
of each end step, if
Right.
you gain life last turn, get a 5/5.
Right. Yeah.
The argument here
Right. If Grave Titan is killed, you still end up with 2/2/2.
You still with 4 power for 6
Right,
mana.
so 4 power for 6 mana, which is a horrible conversion, but still better than 0.
But they
for
are
5.
zombies.
That's true. But his comes out earlier.
Yeah,
Well,
mine's
by
5
1
drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is his playable to a spike?
No.
Why?
Because it doesn't have an effect when it enters the battlefield. 5 mana for a 5/5 is 2 vanilla. So
Okay.
it also needs another card to make it work. You need some sort of effect. Granted, you could have a creature that has lifelink. You could attack. You
sure.
could attack with it. Whatever. The point is that you needed a second card to make that card worth it.
Yeah.
Grave Titan comes down. It's worth it on 6 mana. I'll pay 1 more mana for something that's immediately worth it.
Right. Would you consider the Crested Sunmare a fairly Timmy card?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're making 5/5s every turn.
Yeah.
Which is honestly, I mean, I fall a little bit into that camp where I would rather be making 5/5s that are indestructible every turn than 2/2s. I understand your point.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But I want some indestructible.
Would I
5/5s.
prefer? Would I prefer to make 5/5s? You know, in between each turn, because you know it does it on each end step, not just
Right.
my own. Absolutely, but that means you have to have. Let's say you're playing a 4-man pod, 3 separate instances of life gain in between turns.
Just one Soul Warden and you're good.
Right?
One Soul Warden and you're good.
What do they don't play creatures?
Yeah. Oh, I guess they could not play creatures.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
What I'm saying is,
At which point I'm still winning that race.
but at this point, you're also still relying on just, in my opinion, too many cards to make a card that is subsequently a 5 mana 5/5 good.
All right. So you're kind of going into so to segue. You're kind of talking about the fact that it doesn't have an ETB. It doesn't have an immediate impact.
Yes.
And you can get rid of it by the same means that you can get rid of Grave Titan, but
Yes.
you just get less value out of it.
Much less, actually.
You have a higher risk with the Suncrest Mare.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. With a similar reward system.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially better with Suncrest Mare, but it's a little easier to get rid of, avoid, etc., etc. Okay, so let's talk about some categories of things that you can consider risk. And we could even continue using these cards as some examples. All right, so converted mana cost is the first thing that we want to consider. If something is a super high converted mana cost, for example, World Spineworm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we were talking about that one. That's a really high risk because of really high mana cost.
Yeah, in essence.
Unless you are cheating that out,
Yes.
you know, with an Elvish Piper or something along those
Sneak attack's
lines.
the way to go, guys.
Right, exactly. You're man, if you cast that, you got 15 mana. I mean, you know, you get to 15 mana sometimes in EDH, but do you want to just play a World Spineworm, or do you want to, you know, do lots of other things? So, the mana cost is definitely a thing. When we compare Suncrest Mare to Grave Titan, we've got Suncrest Mare at 5,
Mm-hmm.
Grave Titan at 6.
Yeah.
To me, those are almost synonymous. Like your turn 5 and turn 6 can kind of
Yeah,
meld into
usually
each
post
other.
ramp, you're either at 5 or 6. Like, it's not a big difference depending on what ramp spells you hit that game.
Right. Like, I mean, even if we looked at something card draw wise, like you've got a Mind's Eye, which can draw you multiple cards, and you've got a Staff of Nin or the Immortal Sun, which can draw you multiple cards.
Correct.
You know, the 5 versus 6, I am not viewing that as a huge variance of risk.
Yeah.
What if that 6 is a Consecrated Sphinx?
Well, yes, that's also good.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
a pretty good
Better than
6
all the
Yeah.
former cards. in the deck.
Consecrated Sphinx is a solid,
Yeah.
solid card.
Unless your Sphere of Influence is empty. We'll have to, we'll have to
Oh,
look
yikes.
at that. Yeah.
Spheres of influence. We'll get there.
Maybe.
Color requirements. So this is one that I think a lot of people overlook.
Or they take for granted, at least.
Or take for granted,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, you're in EDH, you're usually playing multicolor decks. So why not just play all the multicolor spells?
Yeah.
Why not play Debt to the Deathless instead of Exsanguinate?
Right.
You know? Debt to the Deathless being... It does twice as much, right?
Yeah, it does twice.
But it,
it
also
does
costs
twice
2
as
extra more mana
Yeah.
for the initial
Well,
cost.
it's 2 white and 2 black instead of just 2 black.
Exactly.
But it's also double X.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Is it double X?
Yes, I think so.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, but
So
then
six-
it drains for double. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So it having, let's just look at the colored mana cost though. 2 white and 2 black as opposed to 2 black. That's going to be harder to cast.
100%.
Regardless of if you have your mana crypts out and your soul rings and all those kind of things. You have color mana requirements, which increases the risk of playing that card.
Yeah.
If you had, for example, 2 5/5s one of which was 3 green. Well, that's a risk on its own. And one of which was Naya. Okay. Depending on what, let's say you're in a Naya deck, that 3 green one actually might be a lot harder to cast.
Yep, 100%.
You know, because you're requiring a lot of the same thing if you play like Invoke Prejudiced or Maisheen the Mind Cage. They all have high blue requirements. It didn't really stop people when it came to Gristlebrand. That's why that got banned. But
Mono Black strong.
Mono Black is pretty
one
strong.
Dark Ritual and you're there.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the big things I think people don't realize is kind of what you're getting at when you're establishing your mana base, and especially like a 2 or 3, more likely than a 3 and 4 and a 5 color deck. You're trying to get an even distribution between your colors. So on turn 4 in a 4 color deck, I ideally want to have one of each of my colors. So I've done everything I could. I fetched accordingly and etc.
Yeah.
When I'm in a 3 color deck and I'm at 6 mana, I want to have 2 of each of my colors.
At least. At least at that point.
Yeah, that's what you're aiming for. That's what you're fetching for. That's
Right.
what you're and that's what you're ramping towards and trying to play rocks towards. So when you're in a 3 color deck and you're trying to establish at turn 6 2 of each of your colors, and then you draw a Mind Over Matter, which is 4 blue symbols. If you draw your Mind Over Matter, it's probably not going to be playable on turn 6 in a 3 color. But more importantly,
screwed anyways.
Right.
Yeah, but more importantly, if you start with that in your hand, it's going to warp how you're going to be ramping for the rest of the game. You're going to be actively working against yourself to establish all 3 colors to try and placate a single card. So that's kind of like one of the things you need to worry about when you're building a deck, is not to actively sabotage like a 3 color deck by playing a card that has 3 or 4 of one color, because then you're going to be actively ramping against yourself and you're going to be drawing dead cards for the rest of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, in a 3 color deck, I would have to have a really good reason to put a Mind Over Matter in there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, usually the Mind Over Matter, it's because it's a combo win counter.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Temple
I
Bell
mean,
win.
That's a tight thing to put into a 3 color deck.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I personally, my one argument that I'd like to make is that when you talk about 3 color decks and everything, you're trying to get 2/2/2 on turn 6, is that you look at what's like if you're playing 3 colors, you're not splashing one of these colors. This isn't like a modern deck or standard deck. You don't splash for that 3rd color.
Not typically, no. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there may be some decks out there
Sure.
that you do it for, but primarily, you're gonna try and if you're playing a 3rd color, you're going to try and get every little bit out of that 3rd color. If you're playing green-black and you start splashing red, you're going to get that Terminate, that Dreadbore. You're going to look for those reasons to play that color. If not, not just play a general that, what's the point of playing 3 red cards in a Jund deck?
Right.
So that's what that was my addition to that particular.
Is there a 3 red card that's worth playing?
No.
No, red with 3 red pips. I'm even trying to think. Like,
we could burn it
ball lightning. Ball lightning.
Ball lightning. Yeah, I guess.
I think it saw standard play when it was out. It was like 6. It was like
Furnace
6/1
of Wrath.
trample.
Yeah, no, I know what it is. Yeah.
Furnace of Wrath, maybe.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's a good one.
That's a solid card. Okay. So it's just something to consider. Like putting your Grave Pact in versus like maybe your Dictate of Erebos.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good example.
If you're in a 3 color deck or like you have a lot of colorless mana sources, you might want to consider which one is best to put in there. Especially if you play tested some and you're like, oh, I'm never hitting that 3rd black. Yeah, take it out. It's not worth just having a dead card in hand.
Yeah.
All right, so the next category of things that we want to talk about is dies to removal, which is kind of like the Magic player's mantra, right?
Yeah.
Like, that card sucks because it dies to removal.
Yeah.
All right, well,
I personally want to say that you can't use that anymore.
that's a bad argument.
You can never say that anymore. Like, dice removal is not an argument. It used to be a thing for some reason, but now it's not good.
I mean, I think some people still use it. I have never thought that it was a good argument because there's a way to kill everything.
100%.
I think, right? Is
Yeah.
there anything you can't get rid of?
Well, hold on, hear me out.
What doesn't Merciless Eviction do?
Good point.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, we kind of broke these down into the things that are the easiest to get rid of. Obviously, the things that are easiest to get rid of are the highest risk, right? So, like, if you have a ramp source and it is really easy to get rid of, then it might be a weaker ramp source than another type.
Yep.
Okay, so the weakest one, the easiest to get rid of, is creatures.
100%. Birds of Paradise, dies the bolt.
Yep. Yeah, still a great card.
Birds to Paradise, dies to Bolt. like we play Legacy or something.
On my gravestone, Bolt the bird. That's all I want to say.
I really want to see some people mental misstep in EDH though.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to get that mental misstep going.
But creature. So if you're playing something and you have the option of, let's say, a Skyshroud Claim,
All right.
a Call Me Gem, and an Oracle of Moldiah.
Well, I understood.
Those are a
cards.
little off. How about like a Mirror that's 2 mana and produces 1?
There you go.
A Rampant Growth.
Yes.
Maybe not a Signet that's too
and a
strong.
Fire Diamond. Or
yeah,
something.
and
okay.
a Fire Diamond.
Okay.
Which one of those is the safest bet?
Much better examples. Thanks.
Rampant growth.
Rampant Growth.
Rampant Growth. Yeah.
You always go for the land ramp.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want the Mirror. It's gonna die pretty much in the first board wipe, which is gonna be like on turn 4.
Yep.
The rock is a little safer, but there's eventually going to be like a Vandablast.
I mean, I use rocks, I think, when I'm in a color like red where I don't have a whole lot of like spell ramp available.
100%,
you know?
yes.
But if I had the option of green or even white has some decent land ramp and things like that, then yes, absolutely go for those. So stay away from creatures to do your bidding unless you're getting additional value out of them too.
Unless you're playing elves.
Yeah, elves obviously you're going to want to take every elf you can get your hands on.
Right. No, I'm not saying stay away from creatures.
You want upside out of your creature to justify running it over.
Exactly.
So like a really good example is Rampant Growth versus Sakura Tribe Elder. And I sometimes when I'm looking at a deck, I weigh the two and I'm like, which one of these is better? I mean, usually you run both, but sometimes you're like, oh, I'm a sack centric or a graveyard centric deck. I want Sakura Tribe Elder because I need a body in the graveyard, etc., etc.
Right.
Other times, you're just going to go with Rampant Growth, usually. I mean, there's really no justification not to run Sakura, but there's small instances where it might not be as good as Rampant.
Right.
But there's like upside that you want to evaluate these cards for. But generally speaking, it goes creatures die first.
Yeah.
Then you got your artifacts that die pretty much second after the second easiest thing to destroy.
Because Vandablast exists.
Yeah. And enchantments are pretty much right behind because you're looking like Aura Shards is the thing that's busting balls.
Aura Shards is pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
Bane
harsh.
of Progress is getting both of these things.
Wave of Vitriol. No.
Yeah,
Wave is good. Wave is good.
Yep.
Does that hit enchantments?
It does, yeah.
It's artifacts, enchantments, and non-basic.
Yeah, that's real
sacks,
good.
too. It's sacks.
And then Planeswalkers being the last that we have listed, and then I would say lands after that.
Yeah.
Because lands are easy to get rid of, but you rarely... I mean, this part is dependent upon your meta.
Yeah.
I would say that Planeswalkers are actually harder to get rid of than lands. However, most play groups don't run a lot of mass land destruction.
Yeah.
Nor
does everyone run Strip Mine. You probably should all run Strip Mine. At least one of.
Or at least a Ghost Quarter or something, right?
Yeah, just to get rid of the Gaia's Cradle when it comes up and stuff.
Something to get rid of
the Maze of Ith.
Or they finally flip that Azor's Gateway and you're like, got him.
just a way to deal with very problematic lands. Because
exactly.
that are overpowered in my opinion.
But... Yeah, I mean, I would if you have abilities on lands, they're usually pretty safe depending on your meta.
Yeah.
Your abilities on Planeswalkers are super safe. Enchantments, you know what? I think that while you gave a good example, Aura Shards, obviously like Austere Command and some things can get rid of enchantments. Man, do people not run enough of that? You can
enchantment removal? No.
You can get away with a lot.
Yeah, I hear very frequently from usually from the Spy crowd, you got to run Cross and Grip, and I'm like, I can't run Cross and Grip. It just doesn't do enough. But really, truthfully, it's a solid good card almost all the time. I actually remember a specific time, and it was a game that warped my image on enchantments. And it was a game. It was a long time ago, and it was with you, Shannon. I think you were there. I honestly think we were all there. Yeah. And you played. Is it Hedonist Trove or no? Betrayal. What's that stupid 7-man enchantment? Grave Betrayal.
Yeah. You played that, and no one did anything.
And
literally, you just snowballed. It was like board wipe, haha, board wipe, haha, and it was just like you literally eventually had like 30 creatures, and I was like. No one bothered. And
Not even naturalizing the hesitation. This is when you have the disenchant train where you're like, disenchant is playable main deck.
100%.
Because you were like that for a long while too.
And honestly, if you don't have a better answer in your colors, mono white, you play disenchant. You have to.
Well, I mean, you got Return to Dust. This is some other good options, but yeah, I mean,
I will play naturalize. I will. Yeah. I am.
So the next thing that we wanted to talk about was specific to creatures, and I actually want to hear everybody's opinion on this. Which one is more important in a creature? Evasion or combat survivability? Like, if you're valuing creatures and you're just looking at two, let's say you got a 5/5 flyer and a 5/5 indestructible. Which one's better?
Indestructible.
I take the flyer.
I would take the flyer.
Yeah. Because I want to get in on my enemy of the evasion. But if you're playing board wipe,
flyer dies too.
Removal.
I'm just saying.
Dies to
Way
removal.
to loop it back around. I appreciate
all
that.
I'm saying. Okay, all I'm saying is like, look, if I'm playing a 5/5 indestructible, sure, you may crack with your 5/5 flyer, but guess what? I'm gonna crack with my 5 indestructible.
Yeah, they both I can't ever block yours. Yeah.
They both block.
Yeah.
You have no good blocks. I have no good blocks. The thing is, I can remove yours. You can remove mine, but yours is much more situational than mine.
Right.
That's the way I look at it personally.
Yeah. Either way, creatures that have evasion or combat survivability are always,
Is evasion good? Absolutely.
Less risky than ones that don't. So, like, getting a creature that's first strike as a combat beater is better than having one that doesn't. So, something you evaluate when you're looking at your cards. That one's kind of an obvious one, but you just got to keep an eye on it.
Right. Always look at. I mean, French vanilla is better than vanilla.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, always look at your keywords. Make sure that they're actually adding value instead of. And then you have to think of evasion. So I've started to do this over the years, and I didn't think of it this way. You have to think of evasion a little bit differently. Like, death touch is evasion.
Yep. No, very rarely will your opponent block a death touch unless they're about to die.
Trample is evasion.
It is.
People do not like blocking trample creatures.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Flying is evasion. Menace is evasion. Those ones are a little more obvious.
Unblockable.
Skull.
Unblockable.
Yeah. So there's multiple types of evasion.
Shadow.
And,
I'm sorry.
Fear. Intimidate.
Yeah. So take all of those into account, and those are probably the most important versions of creature abilities that you want to consider.
I'm wondering how many people played unstable drafts, and you got that one that allows you to identify any ability on a creature and put that on that creature on upkeep.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's one that's like you can use any ability that's on a creature if you can identify it. And so I wonder how many times evasion came up as one of the first, probably right after indestructibility. You go like indestructible, maybe Annihilator 6, and then you start going evasion abilities. Something like that.
Annihilator 6.
I mean, Annihilator 6 seems pretty strong.
It's usually the first one you pick, I would say.
So the next thing that we're going to talk about is actually the broadest category, and I thought this was the most interesting one. So this topic was brought up by Shannon, and he kind of like mocked up all of these topics, and he brought up time to goal. So let's just talk about creatures. When we're talking about time to goal, let's say we have a vanilla 3/3 and a vanilla 2/2. Okay, both have a very long time to goal if your goal is killing someone with damage.
Beat someone to death.
Right?
Damage, yeah.
Okay. One is better, but they're both still bad.
Yeah.
Now, we take the same thing, and we've got a 2/2 and a 10/10. One has a 4-turn clock, assuming your opponents are still at 40 life. So I would say that that's a short to medium length of time.
Yeah.
4 turns. Whereas the other one has 20 turns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna take a while.
Yeah. A long time.
A long time. Okay. So let's talk about this. I think with combos, it's very common to have these kind of issues. All right.
The long con.
That's right. So you have certain cards that fly under the radar and can stay out for a long time. Let's say your end win is Helix Pinnacle. Okay? You have to have 100 counters on it. You pay a mana to get counters on it.
Yeah.
Okay? Your general way to do that is Maze of Ith, Argothian Elder for infinite mana.
Yeah.
Okay? Maze of Ith can probably go out early and stay out early.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Argothian Elder is the most fragile thing on Earth and will die to all of the removal. Yeah. So make sure that you play that right before you want to win.
Yep.
Helix Pinnacle should go out somewhere in between there. That entire combo, if we talk about entire combo, that is a long as far as time to goal. Usually. Now, I mean, I have one on turn 4 with it, but it's super uncommon.
Yeah.
You're usually trying to play a lot of setup, make sure that you have all of your different pieces. Obviously, as you increase the number of pieces that you need for a combo, you increase the length of time.
Right. All those pieces have to survive for multiple turns or the length. Unless you can drop them all in one turn, usually.
Right, exactly.
But generally, you got to feed them out slowly.
Right.
And then got to survive multiple turns.
On the other hand, you have pretty much instantaneous win conditions, which is like
Two-card combos and stuff like that.
Eater of the Dead with Phoenix out or something.
Yeah.
Generally. Yeah. That just kills everybody.
Yeah.
So
if we go back to our kind of example between the sun-crested mare versus the Grave Titan.
Yeah.
It's a really good example of the time to goal like dilemma. So on paper they both produce 10 power possible on the turn they come into play. Obviously the Grave Titan go to 14 if it were to have haste, but generally speaking, if everything's going well for you, you're producing 10 power the turn they come into play. Now the difference here being is that the Grave Titan produces immediately.
Yes.
It's just got to resolve.
Yeah.
Yep. And it gets it. Now, the Crested Sunmare's got to live for the rest of the turn. So that's a longer time to goal in order to create its tokens. So that's slightly more risk involved. Additionally speaking, we haven't even talked about the fact that you have to gain life somehow during your turn. So if you can't gain life on the turn that your Sun Crested Mare comes into play, now the risk has become greater. Your short time to goal has become a medium time to goal. It's got to survive maybe a full round around the table.
Yeah.
That's when a board wipe can just absolutely blow you out, or somebody makes you all sack creatures. You're just like, gosh, I just got blown out, and we all got edicted. So that's when like time to goal, you can see like minor differences between time to goal, and that's kind of why I think Spikes generally like Grave Titan. You kind of highlighted you don't got to work real hard to get what you want. You just get it for casting it.
No.
Whereas Crested Sunmare, you've got to work harder to get it, and sometimes you got to wait longer to get it.
Well, I think that's where the concept of like the floor and ceiling of value of something comes into play. So like Crested Sunmare, let's say you're gaining life every single time, so you're technically creating more power earlier on.
Yeah, you're producing one more power than
than Grave Titan is, and they're indestructible. Okay, so you have a higher ceiling because your potential value is higher,
way higher,
right? However, your floor is potentially getting no dudes ever out of it.
Yep, a 5/5 for 5. Yep.
Right. Whereas you're always going to get the floor for Grave Titan is as long as it hit the battlefield, you got 4 power.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the floor is very different. The ceiling and the floor is in favor of Grave Titan. The ceiling is in favor of Crested Sunmare.
Yeah. The higher the floor, the lower the risk.
But
the good way to describe the floor is what happens if if everything in the entire game just got blown up, so all you have yours lands, you have no hand, and you top deck this card. You top deck a Grave Titan, you're like, not bad, 10 power on board.
Yeah.
You top deck a Crested Sunmare, you're like, that's a 5 mana 5/5. I can't trigger its life gain this turn.
Right.
So you got to draw something else. So that's kind of like floor is your worst case scenario. When this card is at its worst, how good is that card? So you got to evaluate that when you're thinking about risk versus reward.
No, like my thing specifically is like if we're comparing cards on that scale, the floor, or the floor versus the ceiling, I would say the gap for Grave Titan overall is just a smaller gap because Grave Titan will continue to snowball even after hitting the battlefield. So even after its floor, like yes, we're talking about the higher ceiling for Crested Sunmare, but because the floor is so much higher for Grave Titan, that I feel like that's what would.
I mean, because you can evaluate the turn it comes into play floor as well as the floor of every turn subsequently. Yeah. Every turn subsequently, you're probably getting 2/2/2s.
Yes, it's
right.
Yep.
You may or may not be with a Crested Sunmare.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, each turn has its own floor. What?
No. I'm thinking because you're saying that Death Touch isn't evasion, like for Grave Titan, but a 6/6 is evasion. Like most people do not have a creature to block him. I've noticed that.
Yeah, you gotta like throw crap away.
And even if they do, it's like another 6/6 or a bigger creature. And they're like, I'm not losing my 10/10 to a 6/6. It's just so funny. Like that creature gets to attack most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the ceiling for both of those cards, on the other hand, is he gets a 5/5 indestructible every turn, starting on turn 5.
Yeah, and I'm getting it. And ceiling would be like the best case scenario when you have every piece you want with that card to go correctly. So theoretically, the Crested Sunmare could give me a 5/5 on every single player's turn. So by the time it comes back to me, I had 25 power.
Right.
This is Magical Christmas Land. What if your deck is firing on all cylinders? How good is that card then?
Right. Whereas Grave Titan is going to... Its floor and ceiling are almost the same, except for the ceiling, you keep your 6/6.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only difference.
It doesn't get removed. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to... So that's going to be very low risk to play the
Yes.
Sun Titan.
Yes.
Good reward. Crested Sunmare.
Medium risk, right?
Really high risk because of all the variance involved and the difference between the floor and the ceiling.
Yeah.
But very high reward potentially.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go. So yeah, that shows you the difference between two cards, which on paper
Right.
could seem the same. They both produce 10 power the turn they come into play. One you got to work a little harder to get. One has higher upside, so it's considered maybe a higher risk, higher reward card, where a Grave Titan is lower risk, lower reward, and we'll kind of get into how that divvies up into our profiles. Certain profiles prefer different risk assessments with cards.
Right. And to bring it back to the time to goal situation, you also evaluate that for the cards by the floor and ceiling. Like Shannon was saying, if he ends up with 25 power on board by the time it gets back to his turn, well, so the ceiling for that is he's going to start taking players out in a very short period of time. Almost immediate, depending on what point in the game it is.
Yep.
Whereas Grave Titan is more of a value engine. It's a lot more medium to long, but it can really get there and get out of control.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the player profiles. Starting with Johnny, me, I tend to, and I think most Johnnies tend to go extreme risk, extreme reward. Okay? There's a lot of niche combos, a lot of niche synergies that if you get them to work, and the rest of the job of Johnny is to get them to work.
Yeah.
You have to put the cards in there to make it happen.
Yeah.
If you get them to work, it's pretty much you win the game. Mm-hmm. So the extreme reward being I win now.
Yeah, it's
right. Like it was good playing with you all.
God, it must be so difficult for you. Just to carry around that bag of burdens. This card does nothing about the 4.
It does nothing 9 out of 10
You're
times.
assembling Voltron all the time. Like you're just
99,
like
yeah.
Or not just Power Ranger Megazord. It's just like
and you're always missing the
arm
one
does
piece.
nothing.
You're missing the chest piece. You got arms and legs and heads.
I'm
all
actually
over the
assembling
place.
the original Voltron that was made up of like 20 vehicles. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
It was with no lions.
That's a
They were
No
vehicles.
lions?
They were
You get, like-
vehicles. No, like cars and planes and stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Big thing.
So anyway, yes, we're always looking for the cards that have the extreme rewards to them, and then the high risk or the extreme risk comes from trying to make that work. Sometimes you have to do some very weird and risky synergies to get them there.
Yeah.
But the reward should be worth it.
Yeah.
If your reward does not win you the game in most scenarios or come real close to winning you the game, that's not high enough enough reward.
No, it's not. It's not.
You know?
Not for your risk.
Right, exactly.
Which I can agree with.
Right. So you do see Johnnies end up playing a lot of cards that could be thought of as spike-ish cards, like tutors, because we're playing the high risk, high reward cards. But in order to make those work, we have a lot that we have to do to get there.
You're playing a bunch. You're 80% shaft, and then the 20% like spike cards is what help you get there.
Yeah.
Right. So some of the examples that we came up with were Altar of Dementia, which is pretty sweet, milling people out for all of the sacks. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Blood Artist.
Strong card.
Yeah. And Disciple of the Vault. I would also throw something like, Deadeye or Palinchron or Phantasmal Image is a perfect example.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Phantasmal Image is the most fragile creature on the
High risk, extreme risk, extreme reward. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things when I started breaking down the profiles and kind of the risk versus reward analysis, I noticed that Johnnies sometimes have very similar cards as Spikes. They have what appears to be a low risk, low reward card. Like Blood Artist is a 2-drop. You're going to be able to resolve him.
Yeah.
And generally he's going to do a little bit of work before he dies unless somebody's really scared. And even if he drew removal spell for 2 mana. Not terrible. So kind of a low risk, low reward card. Except generally the Spike and the Johnny use them in different ways. Mm-hmm. The Johnny's going to want that Blood Artist to live a very long time or until another couple pieces have fallen into place. Whereas a Spike is totally fine just firing off what he has. He usually's not going to play the Blood Artist until he's already ready to fire off a bit of damage. And he's okay losing that Blood Artist to a board wipe, trading it off for damage kind of thing. So sometimes Johnny's cards can read as low risk, low reward. But truthfully is a lot of times that Johnny need cards to last a very long time and be on the board for a very long time. And they may not be redundant. That's the other problem that sometimes you may only have like 1 or 2 pieces to this combo. And if they get blown up, you're gonna have to be trying to find ways to like pull them out of the graveyard and put them back into play.
Yeah. When something of mine gets blown up, then Bajuka Bogged, and it was the only thing that has that effect.
Yeah, you're
in
like,
Magic,
oh man, I gotta audible to a new win con here.
Plan B is a Dryad Arbor to your face for the next 40 turns. Yeah.
Whereas it's not integral to the Spike's plan that Blood Artist is. If Spike's playing Blood Artist, is probably not important to him enough to like try and counter your removal spell.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the Blood Artist is a good example because Spikes can just use that sometimes as a value engine.
Yep.
A little bit of incidental damage keeps me in the game a little bit longer.
Gain life.
Only a 2-drop.
My favorite thing about Blood Artist is because of exactly the 2-drop, right? You know, it's a 0/1. Like, it doesn't do anything, like, immediately. Yeah. But when you have a board full of dudes and then you go to play Blood Artist, everyone's like, oh my god. Like, it's the head bow and they're like, I gotta counter a Blood Artist. Yeah. Like you don't. Yeah. You're like, this is dumb.
Generally, what you're doing when you're playing Blood Artist is you have a damnation in your hand, right? You're just like, I'm gonna get a lot of value out of this.
Oh yeah.
When you're playing Blood Artist, it's because you have like Alenda in play and you want to try and win the game, like in one turn kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not so good with Alenda. I don't know.
I
don't know how to pilot.
We definitely didn't notice that.
Yeah. The salt comes back. So let's pivot over to Timmy, which tends to be similar to Johnny, but instead of extreme risk, extreme reward, more high risk, high reward.
Yeah. So we're looking for cards that kind of they usually take probably one turn to set up. Like it needs to survive a full turn, so everyone gets a chance to see it. Like a good example of that, a Timmy favorite, Warstorm Surge. A lot of the times that Timmy plays a Warstorm Surge, they have to tap out for it. They tap 6 mana and they play Warstorm Surge. Even if you don't tap out for it, if you have 10 mana and you play Warstorm Surge, you're probably not getting a lot of value out of it that turn. You may be able to ding somebody for 2 or 3. Really what you're waiting to do is to go all the way around the board and untap. And that's when you're like, yes, we've made it. It's paid off. We're about to blast the crap out of people. So that's kind of a medium risk, medium reward, like high risk, high reward. Generally when you play Warstorm Surge, you're basically losing that turn and hoping that it survives kind of thing. And that's kind of a hallmark of a Timmy. Sometimes they ask if you got it. Do you got it? They'll tap out, they'll play the card and be like, do you got it or not? If not, you're going to get lit up like next turn. So it's kind of like, it takes a full turn to get the payoff from my card, and it involves maybe my opponents not having the correct removal at the right time. So that's kind of your medium risk, medium reward, taking one turn before you get your money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Spike, we have low risk, low reward, which some people might take issue with. But hear us out. So obviously, Spike... Well, we'll get into low risk, high reward in a minute.
That's an obvious thing. I think that all profiles
right. Yeah. But so an example that we have here, and I think this is the perfect example for low risk, low reward that every Spike I know plays is Read the Bones.
I love that card.
Right, but it's okay. You're paying 3.
Yeah.
You're getting to scry. You're getting to draw cards. Yeah. You're losing some life. It's not like massive value.
Yeah.
No.
But there's also no risk to playing it.
I call those slingshots.
Yeah, no one's gonna. In fact, I find it funny that sometimes Spikes
Ponder's
will go,
good.
Oh yeah,
it's bad.
Let's not even get into Ponder, Preordain, and Brainstorm, which are like the Spike specials, the lowest risk, lowest reward of all cards. Right. It's a cantrip. You can Spikes live and die on Ponder, Preordain, and Brainstorm.
But the point being, those are generally. I mean, because realistically, a Brainstorm. I understand how it's used, and I know.
Oh, no. I was going to make an argument of that.
Brainstorm draws you a card.
Yeah.
It actually just replaces itself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, more or less.
It's a cantrip.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why for years it wasn't played. Obviously, Legacy and things have changed that. Yeah. But, and same thing with Read the Bones. You draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. It's not bad. I mean, I'm never going to argue with that. I mean, Divination's not horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, you play Muldrip.
So comparably for me at 3-drop, my new high risk, high reward is Manifold Insights. Have you seen this one?
Manifold Insights?
3 mana.
Oh, that card is so weird.
Sorcery. Reveal 10 cards. Each of your opponents must pick one. Hand. Must pick a different one to put into your hand.
Oh, that's that non-land
card,
right? Yeah, that's from the most... No, not most recent, right? Oh, it is most recent?
Yeah, it might be from a Commander set. I'm not entirely sure.
It was from a Commander set.
Yeah.
No, it was
compare those 2 cards together. Like, you have a solid card that lets you scry 2, draw 2. It's very, very, the floor and the ceiling are very close together. People are probably never going to counter that card.
No,
I find it hilarious that sometimes Spikes are like, read the bones, anybody. Like, no, you don't need to ask.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's gonna.
Yeah, let me mana drain it.
Honest to God, the reason I think I like look around the room and I'm just like, I ask is because I'm like, I really hope this doesn't get countered because if it does,
because you're like,
I need to hit lands.
I kept the 2-lander and hot drew the third one.
Yeah,
I better get a fourth.
I better hit my
Whereas
fourth land.
Manifold is like, hey everyone, look at my next 10 cards, and try your best to screw my next like couple draws, kind of thing. So. A lot more fun of a card, but a lot different risk-reward profile.
Only a spike would counter a read the bones.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I saw someone like desperately like going turn 2 ponder, I'd be like, I would question. Like, if they're main phasing ponder after not playing land, I would definitely counter.
That's when you get those like level 2, level 3
only
plays.
The mental misstep, right?
Or Swan Song. Swan Song.
Oh, absolutely play mental misstep. Absolutely do it.
Stop it.
Absolutely play mental misstep.
Soul Ring, Source of Plus.
All right, so then the last category that we're going to talk about is low risk, high reward. And this is a no-brainer. All of us like those.
Yeah.
That's why you're going to hear all of us talk about things like Demonic Tutor, Cultivate. These are all good value cards.
Yep.
They're not likely to get countered.
All staples, right? Soul Ring.
Absolutely, yeah. Soul Ring, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Soul Ring, great card.
You know, could people counter them? Sure. Could people get rid of, your lands if you cultivate? Yeah. They're going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
You still do these things because you're generating so much value out of them.
Yep.
They're universal. Really start to learn those staples, and use resources like EDH Rec and Tapped Out and things like that to see what people are really putting in their decks that do fall into that staple category, so that you can start to evaluate them for yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You guys will all eventually learn that most of the cards you're thinking about right now.
If it says tutor on it, it's always good, right? Is there a bad tutor?
Yeah, there's bad tutors.
What are the bad tutors?
There's a 5 mana tutor that 2 black 3 colors that says find a card. It's not good.
2 black 3 colorless?
Yeah, just
wait.
It has cycling on it.
Oh, that thing. Oh, yeah.
It's not a good tutor. Why would you need 5 mana?
Yeah, Diabolic and things like that are not that great. Yeah.
Diabolic's a budget one, though.
I played Diabolic and I still.
Yeah, I started with Diabolic. Yep.
So anyway, obviously, low risk, high reward. You're gonna want to play all of those cards.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends, see what they're playing. Just watch other people who you're playing against at your local game store, etc. So I hope that gave everybody a decent overview of some risk versus reward as it relates to the profiles and evaluating some cards. Basically, just take all of those things into account. What's the floor of your card? What's the ceiling of your card? How soon does this get me to actually winning the game?
Yep.
And what is the risk versus reward of playing this? Is it a particularly fragile card?
Yeah.
And do I have the means to deal with the fact that it's fragile?
Yeah. Figure out what it is you want your card to do, whether it be draw you cards like Mind's Eye. Figure out how long on average it takes you to get it to do that. That's kind of a risk-reward analysis you need to do.
Yeah.
Mind's Eye is a little riskier. You have to have mana open. You got to wait for your opponent to draw a card. Not as good as, a card that straight up draws you immediately. Right. But it has higher ceiling. You can draw multiple times. That kind of stuff. So, and that kind of breaks down into our different profiles. The spikes generally like their stuff to be nice and tight, floor and ceiling very close. They want it to be consistent. And then as you go higher in the scale to the Timmys, they like a little more variance. The floor and ceiling a little further apart. They're willing to engage in a little more risk to try and get a little more reward. And then you have the Johnnies who will try and play.
It either wins the game or does literal nothing.
It literally does absolutely nothing. It's a worthless card unless they get assembled a 4th or 5th piece, and then all of a sudden infinity damage or something like that. Yeah.
I like that.
I will say one more thing though about the whole. We were talking about for spikes specifically, and I think this kind of like goes back into everyone's for everyone actually is. You're talking about no one wants to counter Read the Bones. There are cards out there that and this goes back into threat assessment, I guess, but there are cards out there that just because they're staples, just because they're good, they will cause more problems for you than they will benefit you. Like
there are some.
This goes into the reward. I think. I'm sorry. The risk
you're talking about like the lightning rod effect of playing like a card that draws.
Just in a vacuum, if you look at it in a vacuum, certain cards like Read the Bones, no one's gonna counter that.
Right.
But risk they study.
If you play
some people just hate that card. They will literally blow it up for no reason.
Luminarch Ascension is a big one that if you play it on turn 2, expect the entire pod to spend the rest of the game trying to kill you.
Low risk,
Yeah, low risk,
but
high reward,
but high risk because people
there is an additional factor of the
there's
aggro.
Exactly. That is something that I wanted to add to
I mean,
this.
guys, Cradle, if anybody literally has any kind of land destruction, it's going directly at that.
100%.
Regardless of what else is going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good to keep in mind.
Yep.
But so with that, guys, we are going to sign off. We'd like to start by saying thanks again to our sponsor, tappedout.net. Where you can find all of our deck lists as well as all of our videos.
Yeah.
Make sure that on YouTube you like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications on.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Yeah. Tap that bell.
We at the door.
You'll get all of our. You get all the notifications for our podcast as well as notifications for our gameplay videos.
Yeah.
And follow us on all of the normal social medias, which you can find in the description below.
Yo, send us some decks for real. Like.
Also, a funny picture is going to appear right here.
Boom! Boom, 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 boom!
But yeah, we're looking to
It's funny that director Matt probably is just going to use my face for...
No,
it's
going to be a funny face.
Snapshot blown up. Boom!
But hey guys, send us some deck lists. We're looking to probably play a game with some user-submitted deck
Absolutely.
lists. So, Timmy's out there. Send me a list. I'd love to try out any hilarious deck.
Honestly... Timmy's, send me a deck. I don't care. I'll play it.
No, don't send him a deck. He's just gonna hate on it. Like literally the
he's
whole
gonna
game. He's
complain.
like,
This deck sucks.
Don't do that.
I will
Spike's
trash your deck
challenge
while I'm
him.
playing.
Challenge him to get good at playing a hard deck.
For me, if you send me something with a combo that's like 15 pieces long and just tell me how the combo is supposed to work,
right then.
I will play that. I will be all over that deck. So yeah, send us deck ideas for gameplay. We'll
we're gonna do a video with us playing some user submitted decks.
Yep.
So.
All right, so until next time, guys, we will see you later, and keep brewing.
Take it easy.